It has been a couple weeks since I've been on the air. And man, what happened to America? Wow. Are we the people we thought we were? Is this the country we thought we were? The things that I've been seeing, the things that I've been dealing with personally, it's been a lot. I'm a white guy, so don't cry for me, Argentina. I get that. But my life is closely intertwined with the black community, and it does hit very close to home. It's very hard to see the people that I care about struggling with this and trying to find my place in the world. What do I do? What do I say? How do I act? How do I support the people that are important to me and support a cause that is important to me? And it always has been. Our channel is inclusive. We don't tolerate any sort of racism. We don't tolerate any sort of anti-LGBTQ sentiment. I don't allow that. I'm not into that. It's not who we are as performers. It's not who we are as people. And we have too many people that are close to us that we care about that are directly affected by this to stand back and not want to make things better. But, I'm one guy in a country of 350 million people. I know you don't need my hot take on what's going on. I get that. It's difficult. You make choices. The choices you make affect directly who you are, right? You have no control over your circumstances of birth, whether you were born rich or poor, black or white. You have not a lot of control over how you were brought up. I get that. I was not brought up in a very tolerant household at all. But at some point, you start making your own decisions. You start deciding who you're going to be as a person. At that point, as an adult, the decisions you make, the actions you take, and the actions you refuse to take color your character. They define who you are. And I know this is a very small platform. Our videos get a lot of views. This podcast does not. A couple thousand people. And I have a very strong feeling that the people who listen to my podcast, I'd be surprised if they weren't of like mind. But if perhaps you're not, if perhaps you feel like this country needs to get rolled back to, say, the 1950s, when America was great, it wasn't, man. Don't let those nostalgic movies fool you. It wasn't all Ma and apple pie and welcoming the boys back home from World War II and everybody moving to the suburbs and a chicken in every pot. There's a lot of America that the 50s weren't great for. And I don't see anybody but older white guys wanting to roll the country back. Because, maybe for them it was better. Maybe for them it was a better time to be alive. But if you weren't a white guy, it wasn't a great time to be alive. When they say make America great, I hear what they're saying is make it so women and colored people are afraid to say no. And we can't have that anymore. And we have a country now where people aren't afraid to say no. It's a bad state. We have a very difficult situation. There are riots in my town. There are riots probably in your town. And justified. I think they're justified. I think that from what I've seen, from the totalitarian oppression that I've seen, from the fascist way that the police is enforcing the law, I think the riots are justified. Because protesting is not supposed to be convenient. A protest isn't something that you can easily ignore and go back to your football game. That's why it's a protest. And you don't protest things unless they're important. You don't protest because you want McDonald's to bring back the McRib. You protest because people are being killed People are being oppressed. People are being incarcerated unfairly. That is when you take to the streets and you protest. And if it inconveniences you, if it makes your commute home take longer, I cannot sympathize with you if that's what you're mad about. If you're so upset about that, but you're not upset about the systematic oppression of people of color in our country, that's on you, man. When you oppress people this long, when you hold people down, when you systematically incarcerate them at a much higher rate and a much more unfair, systematic approach than you do white people, what do you expect to happen? How long do you think you can keep doing that before they say, we are done, we're tired of this, we will not take it anymore? And if that means burning down a police station, that should tell you something. People aren't burning down police stations because the speeding tickets are too high or because there's too many red light cameras. They're burning down police stations because people are being murdered in cold blood. And if your people were being murdered in cold blood, you would have the right to protest. You would have the right to get out there and say, no more. And if that meant burning down a police station, so be it. You know, I don't care if this is popular. I don't care if this gets a lot of views. This is my platform. This is my space. This is my place to say, this is how I feel. If you feel differently, make a video. Tell me how you feel. I'll listen. Link to it under here. I'll watch it. If you have a different approach, if you have a different way of coming at this problem, I will listen. But I'm not going to be among the voices saying, don't protest like that. Don't inconvenience me. Don't destroy property. Property apparently is much more important than human lives. The entire time during the pandemic, our Target, Walmart, Home Depot, grocery stores were open. No problem, apparently. Threat of looting, threat of destruction, threat of property damage. They shut that stuff down real quick. That's interesting. That's very interesting. It seems like they value their property a lot more than human life. Maybe if people were still property, they'd value them more. Think about that. I am mad about it. I was police at one time. How about that? I went through the training. I went through police academy. I was taught about escalation of force. I was taught about the responsibility you have as a law enforcement officer to escalate force only as necessary. And what I saw wasn't necessary. No, there was no need. There was no need for what I saw, and I'm furious about it. I'm furious about it for a lot of reasons. A man lost his life. A little girl lost her father. People lost brothers and sisters and children. That was unnecessary. When you have someone restrained on the ground in handcuffs, they're not a danger to you anymore. They're not. And if you have to subdue them, there's a lot of ways to subdue someone without putting your knee on their neck. I don't have any patience for that. That's bad police work. It's coming from a police officer to a police officer. That person murdered that man in cold blood, indifferently, and he knew he wouldn't be punished for it. That's why he did it. He felt he was immune. He felt he was above the law. I'm not anti-police. You know, I'm going to do the cliche thing and say I have a lot of friends that were police. Yeah, no kidding. I was police. I also saw the bad about being police. I saw the people who were drunk with authority and power, the small, scared people who, given a badge and a gun and the ability to boss people around and make them do what they said, oh, they got real angry when people didn't do what they said. They didn't like that at all. They didn't like it when people didn't immediately bow down to their authority. Yeah, that's a very insecure person. And unfortunately, a lot of very insecure people, a lot of weak people, a lot of scared people are inexplicably drawn to that power and that authority. Are all cops bad? No, absolutely not. I know personally good cops. You know good cops. I don't doubt that. I'm a white guy living in 2020. I don't want to have any interaction with a police officer in public. No, because I've seen too many times the guy who forgot why he's wearing that uniform, why he's wearing that badge and gun, what he's doing out there. The guy that forgot that just because he has a badge and a gun doesn't make him right. That he is under more responsibility to do the right thing. You've seen the excuse, oh, the police officer was panicked, that's why he used deadly force. So a trained police officer who's gone through the training, who's gone through the accreditation to carry that weapon, he's allowed to get scared and do something stupid. But apparently every civilian in the United States is supposed to act coolly and calmly and follow direction when they're being yelled at and had guns pointed at them. Let me tell you how stressful that is. If you've never been in that situation, if you've never had police on you, pointing their guns at you, yelling at you, how terrifying that is. But you're supposed to remain calm. You're supposed to not make any mistakes. You're not supposed to fight back. You're not supposed to say anything. You're supposed to comply perfectly. And I've seen the tapes. I've seen what's going on in the cities of America right now. I've seen people protesting peacefully on their knees. No threat to anyone, their hands behind their back, their hands behind their head, and police using excessive force on them. Why? Because they got their feelings hurt. Yeah, they didn't like being called names. They didn't like having their authority questioned. They didn't like having people not happy and not respecting them. And they lost their cool, they lost their temper, and they had a weapon. And they used that weapon on innocent people, on people who were not resisting, on people who were not a threat. That's a crime. Police officers aren't immune from crime. They can't commit crimes ad hoc whenever they feel like it and make up the rules as they go. If a police officer uses force on you, it better be justified. They can't just use force on you because they're wearing a badge and a gun. That's called assault. And there will be a reckoning. There will be a reckoning for this. I don't know when it's going to be. It's not going to be under this administration, that's for sure. But there will be a reckoning. And the police officers who abused their authority and ran over people and struck people who were kneeling with their hands behind their backs, who drugged people and kicked people out of cars who were not resisting, who tear gassed people and fired grenades at people because they didn't like what those people were saying, because they got their feelings hurt. There will be a reckoning. We will find out who did that. We will find out who those people were, and they will be brought to justice. I guarantee you we will find out who those people were. You can't get away with it anymore. Nothing has changed. This has been going on in the past, and more so. The difference is now every single person on the street has a camera. And they know when they're in a bad police situation to record it. Because it's their word against the police, and our justice system is set up to believe the police. But when you show that footage and you say, this is what happened to me. I was kneeling on the ground. I had my hands behind my back. This officer struck me with his baton. Why? Why was that justified? That's going to be a hard question to answer. I had no weapon. I was not posing a danger to the officer. the officer fired at me with a pepper spray gun, or they fired at me with a flashbang grenade, which, by the way, you don't shoot at people. You don't aim at people with those weapons, because those are not non-lethal weapons. There's no department in the country that allows you to fire that kind of weapon at a person unless you intend to kill them. So we will find out who did that. We will find out the police that are abusing their authority. The ones that are not, they have nothing to fear. They're doing their job to the best of their ability, and they're in a bad situation. If you're a good cop right now, I do have pity on you, because the actions of the bad cops have tainted your uniform and your badge and your credibility. You may be the best cop in the world right now, but you share the stain of the cops who killed and murdered and maimed and assaulted protesters for no reason. And that sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, that's part of the job. The media is very quick to point to the looters and say, look, this is what the protesters are doing. Oh, so some people loot and that discredits the entire protest? Okay, that's fair. That means that some cops do bad things. That discredits the entire police force. Oh, you don't like that logic? Well, there you go. Yeah, some people are looting. Some people are being dumb. Some people are taking advantage of a bad situation. Those people are wrong. They're bad. They are harming their community. I agree. If you're using this situation for personal gain, you're a bad person. And you are harming your community. Fundamentally harming your community and the cause. But tens of thousands of people are protesting, and they're not stealing. They're bringing their own water. They're not breaking into Targets to steal shoes. They're trying to fight for social justice. And unless you're willing to hold the police to the same standard, where a few bad apples mean that all police are bad, you cannot then say that a few bad protesters makes this entire protest invalid. I won't hear it. We won't hear it. Our leadership has failed us. Our leadership is non-existent. Our leadership is making the situation worse, pouring fuel on the fire. Our leadership is scared. Our leadership is tyrannical and fascist. And those are not superlatives in this situation. It's not an exaggeration. The definition of fascism, the definition of totalitarianism, the definition is our leadership right now. And that sucks. And this is not going to go away. The harder the police crack down, the more violent the protests will become. The police are not meeting violence with violence. The police are instigating violence. And so far, from what I've seen, the protesters have been very tolerant. Very tolerant. Because if someone runs up and hits you and you're not assaulting them, it's real hard not to hit back. It's real hard. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing peaceful protesters being struck, peaceful protesters being pepper sprayed, peaceful protesters being hit with grenades, flashbang grenades, pushed to the ground. You've seen the videos that I've seen. You've seen the police officer shove that woman down. Why? She call him a name? Did she hurt his feelings? Is his ego that fragile? Did he feel like he was in danger from an unarmed woman? Tough guy. Yeah. I think he lost his temper. I think he got his feelings hurt. I think that person didn't do what he told her to do immediately. Yeah, well, she doesn't have to. She wasn't breaking any laws. He was, though. That's called assault. What he did is assault. I want him arrested. I want him tried for assault. You do too. Because that could be you. That could absolutely be you. We've seen the National Guard shooting at people inside their homes. Think about that. Standing on your front porch and someone on the street fires at you inside your home, porches inside your home. Think about that. What if that was you? How would you feel? How would you react? If we don't check this, if we don't stop this, if we don't have a reckoning and bring this back, shut this down, hold these people accountable, we're not going to do the "I was only following orders" defense, are we? No. Because every single one of those police officers had the right to say, "No, I'm not doing that. I am not going to be the guy that nightclubs a kneeling person." Nobody ordered that. That was a personal decision. And that personal decision will be punished. There will be a reckoning. That person does not need to be a police officer anymore. Police brutality has been a cancer in our country for a long time. And instead of addressing it, instead of making it better, we have only enabled police officers to do worse and more by giving them more powerful weapons, more immunity, more protections under the law when they make mistakes. Yeah, everyone's human. You know, dark alley, police officer thinks the suspect has a gun. It turns out to be a candy bar. Yeah, that sucks. You know, we were trained for that. We were put in those scenarios. We were trained for that. We trained hard for that. And we knew that we may make the bad call. And a jury sitting in judgment over a police officer can make that decision. Did that person act in the best faith? Did they think their life was in danger legitimately? And did they defend themselves legitimately? We'll excuse that mistake. That's a mistake. What we saw in Minnesota, that was not a mistake. That was a choice. Cold-blooded choice. Not heat of the moment. Not only had an instant to decide life or death. He knelt on his neck for minutes. Why? Why? That's murder. That's murder. And he's being held accountable now. Why? Because it was on tape. How many have gotten off scot-free? And when you're a police officer and you see in the news media, oh, well, that guy shot this other guy and he got away with it, so what do I have to fear? All I have to say is I felt that my life was in danger and I'll be free. I'll be clear. That's an ego trip. That's a power trip. No, we have another message to send, which is we're giving you an awesome responsibility as a police officer. And we expect you to exercise it with care and great, great caution. You have the power of life and death. That is a great power. And you are responsible for using it properly. Think of your family. How would you react if that had been your wife or your daughter that thug police officer shoved to the ground? Why? Because she said something that hurt his feelings? How would you react? What would you do in that situation? Yeah, I thought so. I'm not anti-police. I'm anti-bad police. I'm real anti-bad police. I have zero tolerance for bad police. Because it's a tough job. It's not for everybody. And a lot of the people that have that job right now shouldn't. We need to have better hiring practices, better recruitment, better training. We need to de-escalate force situations. We need better non-lethals. We need ways of saying, hey, this person's life is not worth a $20 bill. This person's life is not worth a speeding ticket. This person's life is not worth your ego as a cop. Oh, what, they made you mad? They called you a name? You need another line of work if you can't take that as a cop. If you can't stand there and coolly and calmly have people yell at you and use hard language and make you feel bad about yourself, okay, that's human. It's hard. But that means you don't have what it takes to be a police officer. You don't. If you can't remain calm in that situation, fine. Go work at Denny's. Go work in an office where you can go talk to HR if someone is mean to you. Because being a police officer means dealing with people who aren't going to like you, who aren't going to be happy with you, who are going to yell at you. And if you can't take that, if your ego is too fragile to take that, you need another line of work. Simple as that. Yeah, I won't accept it. We won't accept it any longer as people. This is going to be a very difficult time for America. It's going to be a very difficult time to recover from this, because a lot of people may have been anti-police prior to these protests. After these protests, yeah, you guys have done yourself a great disservice. The police departments all across the country are going to wear the stain, because those videos aren't going to go away. Those videos are going to keep on being replayed and replayed and replayed. That brutality that you showed to innocent people will be replayed. And when people see you driving down the street, that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember the good stuff. And there has been good stuff. There have been officers who knelt down and said, hey, we're not going to hurt you. We're here to keep the peace. And the best way we can keep the peace is not attacking you. Those are good officers. That was good leadership. Good things happened at those protests. The protests where the police got their feelings hurt, maybe they took a water bottle to the face. Yeah, that's why you wear riot gear. Water bottle to the face won't kill you. It may make you mad. Guess what? That's your job. If you got your feelings hurt and you hurt somebody, we got it on video, and we will figure out who that was. There will be a reckoning. All right. I'll come back to this at some point. I hope that I'm going to talk to you guys in a week or so, and I'll have something less heavy to say. I'm going to release this separately from the weekly podcast. So if you don't want to watch it, you don't want to listen to it, you want to keep on living life like everything is fine, I get that. You can do that. I get it. You have the right to ignore what's going on. But you shouldn't. You should be aware. Take a stand. Support the people that are trying to fight to make this right. If you can't get out there and stand on a picket line yourself, if you can't stand in a riot line yourself, I understand. It's not for everybody. You cannot turn a blind eye. And when it comes time to vote, remember this. Remember these days. Remember how the police acted. Remember how the protesters acted. Remember how our leadership acted come election day. Don't vote party. Vote for people who are against what you don't want, what you don't like, what you cannot take anymore. I don't care if you don't like them personally. I don't care. It's not about personality. You're not their buddy. You don't need to get a drink with them. What are their policies? And yeah, they're politicians, I know. They'll say whatever they need to say to get elected. Sure. I think we've seen. If you're of voting age right now, you remember Obama. Was it like this? Was it like this? Don't tell me that who's in office doesn't matter. Don't tell me that leadership doesn't count. Don't tell me that all politicians are the same, because it wasn't like this 4 years ago. No, it wasn't. We had leadership, and leadership makes a difference. So it does matter who you vote for. Vote these people out of office. Vote their policies out of office. Vote anybody who thought they were a good idea out of office. Sweep it clean if we have to. because the people of America are done. They're done with this. We are done. There are a lot of us, and we may not have been angry enough before. We may not have had enough of this to get out and vote before, but we do now. And you're going to see a big change. Until then, stay safe. Be smart. Don't break the law. Don't do something stupid. Don't bring down the cause by bad activity. Be an example. Be what these leaders are not being. Be calm, be rational, be understanding. Get out there. Show them that your voice matters. All right. Take care.